Well, Grant, CEO of Rockit, love the company. Obviously, particularly from New Zealand, there's a lot of primary producers, a lot of commodity producers, and they are at the whim of price fluctuations. And something like Rockit has obviously risen above it. You've got this great product that commands a significant premium relative to other apples. And you've done it through both a unique product and some really good marketing, branding, supply chain, etc. behind that. So it'll be good to really get a little bit deeper into just how you've done that, and particularly in relation to China. So I guess to kick off, you've obviously got this unique apple. It's small, it's edible straight out of the tube or out of the pack. It'd be good to understand how you've localized that for China.
Yeah, no problem. So, we're super proud of the world's first fully developed miniature apple. We've tried to be really clear with our consumer value proposition, our retailer value proposition, to create territories with which we believe we've got a right to win it, and we're differentiated versus the competition, and then it creates enough space for our local talent to pull out what really resonates with our consumer understanding and the insights we get from market. So our value proposition focuses on 4 key territories. Number 1, it's healthy and nutritious. Number 2, it's deliciously sweet and crisp. Number 3, it's the perfect snack size. And number 4, we've got a really cool Rocky character, which is cheeky and everybody loves him. And we sort of create that territory with which countries and markets can then tailor based on their understanding. In China, this year we've then developed our own TVC that's available via Focus Media. Focus Media primarily is in the elevators and lifts all through China. It's a fantastic product. It's a fantastic channel, very captive audience in apartment buildings and offices. What that's really focused in on is on the mother. Primarily, apples around the world, and especially in Asia, are consumed by the family. They're sliced, they're consumed after dinner, and they're sort of peeled and sliced and eaten as a family unit. Rockit, you can eat the skin. It's designed for individual consumption. We have an occasion-based strategy, which means we have an impulse or a snack pack, we have a daily tube, we have a family pack, and then we have a gifting proposition. Our competition primarily orientated on a price per kilo commodity sort of space. And so what happens when you're an occasion-based strategy is 42% of our sales, our consumption, is eaten out of the home versus 14% of the competition. So it really does create a quite a different proposition for our markets to then tailor to their local needs.
Right. And other than the formats, how have you created these occasions specifically for China?
So what we've done is we've looked at the use cases for, why would, who do we want to compete with? So originally we want to be the world's most loved apple brand. Actually, we want to be the world's most loved healthy snack brand. And what does that do? That means you lift up your total addressable market, and you start to think about when might you need a perfectly sized snack. And so we start to look at the Chinese market. China loves fruit, so gifting becomes a natural proposition. Middle Autumn Festival or Chinese New Year, we know how important it is to provide gifts. Fruit's such an aspirational gift to provide to people. But what about that everyday gifting experience? In the Western world, you might take a bottle of wine or a pack of chocolates or a bouquet of flowers when you're going to dinner. However, as you know, in China, it's very popular, very common to provide a fruit pack or a fruit box. And when you've got the most aspirational and premium fruit product or apple product, how do we create an everyday gifting solution? So not just at those 2 seasonal events. So using our insights around what we know about the market, how do we create occasions that can differentiate us from our competition, potentially push into new use cases and new times of the day, and create that sort of from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, what are the occasions where Rockit can show up as a brand and ultimately capture the hearts and minds of consumers.
Great. Now, I know a big problem with a lot of global brands in China is maintaining your global DNA, but still making sure it's relevant for China. Are there other some of those challenges? How has Rockit dealt with that?
I think going back to that value proposition, right? So if we can be clear around what differentiates our little apple compared to other snacks or other apple varieties, where do we feel as though we've got a right to play and a right to win, and then creating enough space that our local teams can tailor their messages based on that. And so I think what we do really well in the China market is use channels really well. So whether that be using Douyin to drive e-commerce, etc. How we use KOLs to really get that awareness and leverage that expertise or that sort of ambassadorial channel. For the first time this season, we used online to offline through Little Red Book, which has been really powerful for us. And we've done our first ever TikTok live streaming event. So being really clear around what differentiates us as a brand and what we want to stand for globally, creating enough space for our local teams to be able to customize that to their local market insight, and then amplify that through different channel medias and channel opportunities based on what resonates in that market and what we're trying to do. So China is our most important market. We are growing greater than 50% year on year in China. It's more than half of our business. We've gone from having circa 14 people in that team to more than 25 within a year. We are boots on the ground. We are all in with China, and we're just trying to do the best we can to be as relevant as we possibly can for the Chinese consumer and continue to win their hearts and minds when they see the Rockit brand in their local store.
Great. Can you unpack on that boots on the ground? How important is it, and what are the kind of key focuses of your soon to be 25 or 25 staff?
Yeah, look, I think first and foremost, you're either all in with China or you're not. And I think a lot of businesses, and I think New Zealand business especially, can be quite good at brand and quite good at product, but really don't understand channel and how to get things to market. And I think what tends to happen is a lot of businesses become traders or exporters, and they basically pick distributors and they get product into distribution, and then they sort of go, okay, now it's over to you. Put that into this massive machine, which is called China. And even if we get a little bit of our niche, then we've got a really strong business. It's a relatively complacent strategy, and I think it possibly may have worked in the past, but you're seeing Chinese consumers much more focused on value, and value doesn't necessarily mean price. It means what's the quality proposition that I'm getting for the price that I'm ultimately paying. And obviously they're more than prepared to pay premium where they believe there's aspirational cues, there's a really high quality solution, experience, health, wellness outcome for them. And so we're really making sure that we are investing in our brand. We don't make channel do all of the work, which is paint by numbers, but how do we engage with consumers so that when they go into a retail environment, we already have that emotional and functional attributes to the brand. They see the Rockit branding in store and they go, that's right, I saw that in focus media. I'm going to have this for my children and make sure it's available. So we started off with a sort of a sales manager and primarily a sales and marketing team. What we've now got is a general manager for China who reports directly into me as the CEO, who's a member of my senior leadership team. And so that when we're having conversations around strategy, around tactics, around resource allocation, China is our biggest market, has got a really loud voice at that table with great peer relationships to go, hey, this is what resonates for the China business. And how do we make sure, a really wise person told me 71,000 new consumer products are launched every day in China. It might have been you, Mr. Tanner. How do we make sure that we create the empowerment, we create the governance and cadence and resource allocation to ensure that Cullen and his team, who's the general manager there, have the ability to really step up in that market and tailor the proposition to what's required. Quality is a big thing for us. Also, key account management. So, we don't want to be part of a distributor's array of fruit so that when they go and speak to a retailer and they pull out their wares across multiple categories, and you get your 1 to 5 minutes worth of airtime. We want to make sure with an occasion-based strategy, when we're talking about snack packs and we're talking about daily packs, we're talking about gifting and family packs, we're talking about turning up in a chiller and in ambient environments. We want to have promotional calendars, and we want to do online to offline promotions, etc. We want to capture their imagination and talk about category management and how we grow the category for the retailer. And so putting that talent in, primarily from an FMCG background, that can really talk about activity plans with retailers is really important. And then how do we build out e-commerce expertise? How do we make sure that we've got people who engage with licensed brands and that licensing opportunity, and we just really cover our bases and be a lot more self-sufficient within that China market and empower them to go after the opportunity.
Correct. So you're obviously quite a large and well-resourced company by New Zealand standards, but there's a lot of smaller businesses, not just from New Zealand, but Australian, European, North American, that may not have the resources that you have. If you were a New Zealand business and you can't afford to have 15 or 25 people on the ground in China, how would you approach it?
Yeah, the great thing about New Zealand and that opportunity that you outline is New Zealand Trade and Enterprise are an outstanding organisation to provide all levels of support to any organisation thinking about exporting out of New Zealand and growing their international footprint. There's also a company called Primary Collaboration New Zealand, PCNZ, which is ably led by David Boyle as their CEO, who's based in Shanghai. That's who we started with, and we started off with 1 or 2 people, as do most New Zealand organisations. Primary Collaboration New Zealand works as a springboard or a shared services provider, whether it be recruitment, whether it be IT, whether it be finance, expense payment, invoice management, accounts receivable, consultancy, strategy, channel management. They provide that lock, stock and barrel opportunity for you to test that market, grow and develop your expertise in that market, and then potentially graduate to having your own woofie and your own business up there. So they do a fantastic job at that. Rockit used them, as did a lot of other New Zealand businesses. But where they probably excel in as much as anything else is, we've all got scars in our backs from learning around how to enter new markets, how to do things properly, how to avoid some of the failures of previous brands that have gone in there and made some mistakes. PCNZ curate all of those experiences to guide and help you on your journey into China. So I couldn't speak highly enough, and they've been a key component of Rockit's success into the China market.
Yeah, it's PCNZ. It's something we hear a lot about, and there's just so many success stories coming out. It's a great concept that I would hope that is scalable in other markets as well.
Agreed.
But obviously, China Skinny, we're marketing focused, both the services we provide and the content in our newsletter. So it would be just really good to understand, deep dive down into some particular activation so that you've found really move the needle for Rockit.
Yeah, so probably the most recent one we did was Kung Fu Panda, right? We've done Kung Fu Panda last season. And hey, it's a playful character. It resonates across both sexes. It's kids love it, as do adults. As we know, in Asia, soft toys and the panda are resonate extremely well in that market. It's an international IP. And so we partnered with Universal, which was really cool. And what we focused in on is how do we create some theatre and some livery around the packaging? How do we create some theatre around displays and creating that impactful moment when consumers go into retail and they want to buy a piece of fruit? Our research tells us in China that 70% of consumers going into retail want to buy fruit, but they don't know quite what they want to buy. So if you can stand out from your competition at that point of purchase with some IP that really resonates, then that's a real winner for us. What we'll focus on this season will be our Rocky character, so Rocki, dressed like an apple with his mask on, sort of a cheeky, irreverent sort of character that loves to play and loves to highlight all the benefits of the Rockit apple and why people should consume fruit. That character has researched incredibly well for us in China. And we're really, really confident as we move into the Middle Autumn Festival and the gifting season, as we really start to bring out Rocky onto our packaging, that it's going to continue to play a really big part in China. And we'll also continue to evaluate, what is that role of licensing to engage with the consumer base? Is it KOLs and, is it licensed product? How do we keep expanding our awareness to different groups of consumers? As you'll know better than anybody else, Mark, you've got to really consider China as a continent versus a country. You've got to be aware that tier 3 and tier 4 cities often have a higher standard of living because their cost of living is so much lower than tier 1 and tier 2 cities. So really you can cut that business, cut that country slash continent in so many different ways based on where you want to focus your efforts and where you want to optimize your marketing spend to get a great outcome, and then test, learn, grow, and evolve off the back of that. So we're just fascinated with China. We love the fact that we've got more people on there. We want to keep expanding into that business. The brand resonates really well, and we just want to learn and grow and continue to do good things with our amazing Chinese consumers there.
Great. Well, I know, Grant, you get up to Shanghai a lot, and nice to catch up with you on the most recent trip with the Prime Minister delegation. Any thoughts on how that was successful, and if so, why?
Yeah, look, I think there's three things I talk about when I talk about the Prime Minister delegation. First and foremost, for all of our Chinese business partners and consumers, for them to see the Prime Minister of New Zealand prioritising China up there is a great reflection of how important the Chinese consumer and the Chinese country is to the New Zealand government and New Zealand population. The second one for me was, Rockit as a brand, as part of a small delegation going into China. The fact that we were part of that gave us gravitas and mana to our brand, which meant, that our Chinese partners have partnered with a great brand. And then thirdly, at an individual level, it was great to see our business partners have a photograph with our Prime Minister Luxon, Prime Minister Luxon being so curious about their business and how we as a country show up for them and how we can improve, taking the photos, the glint in the eye of our partners, putting it on their social media, because they won't be able to do that with their own politicians. So I think that was really cool. And then I think for us, we signed a big agreement with Shunfeng over there, which is the third biggest retailer. I love that story. Mr. Han back in 1997 was driving a tricycle during the day with a fruit basket at the front selling his fruit, and at night he was the gatekeeper of a factory. Fast forward 28 years, he has 2,400 retail outlets across China. He's adding 50 new stores every single month. Last year, they sold 3 containers of Rockit apples via wholesale. This year, he signed up for 30 containers, so 10 times more. The next day, after signing with Prime Minister Luxon the agreement, he was in one of his stores live streaming, selling Rockit tubes to his customer base and to his team. And so that seeing the humility and the founder of that business so actively engaged and so proud to have Rockit in their stable, and then roll up his sleeves and still be working on the shop floor is pretty inspiring to see. So it was a fantastic trip for us.
Yeah, great. That's such a great China story too. Such a classic, guys from rags to riches and really giving back.
Yeah, completely.
Now, just to kind of follow up on the PM's visit, what's your view on the broader Sino-New Zealand relationship and dialogue right now?
Look, I think it's really positive. New Zealand was one of the first countries to set up diplomatic relations. New Zealand is really well respected over there. From a consumer base, they love the pure, green, clean, aspirational qualities of New Zealand. There's a lot of trust between the two nations, which I think is really important. We have a phenomenal foundation with which to build on because of the attributes of our country, of our culture. We had the Kapa Haka group up there, which resonated extremely well, not only when they were doing Kapa Haka, but after the Kapa Haka, to see the group mingle with our Chinese customers and partners and engage with them in a really positive manner was just fantastic to see. And so I think we have an amazing foundation with which to grow. The free trade agreement of 2007, 2008 absolutely was the unlock for our two businesses to really develop closer ties. There's a lot of investment from China going into New Zealand to support the capex required for New Zealand businesses to be more successful. And it's great to see more collaboration going on between New Zealand companies to create that New Zealand Inc. view of how do we actually show up better. When you think about, targeting students to come to New Zealand, well, firstly, you target the tourists. The tourists come to New Zealand, they have a great experience. They see our goods that are ultimately exported, and they see them in their shops. They want to send their children to New Zealand because it's such a great environment for them to learn and to grow. And then that cycle just continues to grow. So there's a huge opportunity, across the spectrum of primary producers, education providers, tourism organisations to work hand in hand with the New Zealand government and NZTE to really unlock the true value of New Zealand to that market. Which so I think I'm incredibly optimistic about the relationship. It is massive market for us. It's 1% of the population moves closer to urbanisation every year. That's 13 million people. We'll take that every day of the week. That's a great growth opportunity for New Zealand brands.
Great. So obviously, really appreciate your insights. You've been there, you're on the ground, you've rolled up your sleeves, and it's so good that you're spending time on the ground and obviously have the team on the ground as well. It comes through in your wisdom today. And I really do appreciate that. Just as a parting note, businesses that are thinking about China or are kind of already in China but not up to much, what would be the elevator advice that you'd give them on when we're talking maybe just a small building by Chinese standards, say a 30-story elevator pitch?
Yeah. So if you think about it, right, most New Zealand organisations are struggling with the domestic business and how to find growth. China has an insatiable appetite to take innovation and to take great quality products. New Zealand has a foundation of great products to go into that market. We have New Zealand Trade and Enterprise and Primary Collaboration, or PCNZ, are great examples of organisations that can support you on your growth journey. Reach out to any New Zealand exporter, happy to be one, and ask for advice or guidance. But my view would be, don't hold back. It's incredibly rewarding to be part of the partnerships and relationships you get with Chinese companies. The Chinese consumer is incredibly discerning. They're very educated around what great value looks like. They want quality. They love New Zealand. Don't hold back. Get involved.
Great. Thank you, Grant. All the best with your sales, and particularly with Rocky. I look forward to seeing him around.
Nice one. Good on you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mark.